WAPE, Channel 69, from yesterday.
Hello again, this is Honest John. Welcome back to this celebration of the Big Ape in Jacksonville. I don't have any audio for you. If you came here expecting to hear some good 60s rock and roll radio, you'll find it on some of the other things that I've posted, but not here. I thought I would just, again, sit down and talk a little bit about radio, some of the experiences I had and things like that. Hope you find it interesting. If you don't, then you're not obligated to watch it, but if you do, I think I've got some stories you might be interested in. First of all, for the record, I'm recording this on July 18th, 2024, from my home in North Carolina. Got some thunderstorms coming up in a little while maybe, so you can see the leaves blowing around behind me. But it's a Sunday afternoon here. I want to talk first of all about a concert that nobody seems to know anything about but me. Back in 1969, I went into work one Sunday afternoon. I got there around 11:30, went on the air at 12. There were some strange cars in the parking lot, and there was an 18-wheeler backed up into a little grove of pine trees, the kind of flatbed that hauls bulldozers around, I guess. Ike Lee came out and greeted me as I was coming into the station. He said, we're going to have a concert here with the Almond Brothers today. And I thought, oh my God, how do we haven't rehearsed it? I've got commercials, I've got station breaks, I've got news, it's on the log, I got to do it. And he said, no, just calm down, don't worry about it. He said, we're not going to broadcast it. All I want you to do is just get a crowd of people out here. And he told me, he said, what happened was, he said, last night, the Almond Brothers officially signed Barry Oakley, who was a bassist for The Second Coming, a big local band around Jacksonville. They said they signed Barry and maybe one other person, and that they also signed a contract with the record company. They were going to leave the next morning, and they were going to go make an album. Big deal, huge deal. The Almond Brothers were a big band around Jacksonville, and I felt really good about that. So I went on in and started the show, and after a little while, the band came in, and the crowd started to pick up a little bit out in the area where the truck was parked, and I stuck my head out a little later and I heard music, so I knew the guys were playing out there. I think a lot of people came in. As I recall, there were some cars parked along the side of Highway 17 out in front of the studios. We were down south of Orange Park. Took people a little while to get there, but as I recall, it was a big crowd. At one point, I guess the band took a break because Barry Oakley, I saw him come into the lobby, and I had on, I think it was the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, some really bubblegums record. I thought, God, I hope he doesn't come back here. But he did. Came back to the control room. He walked in, he stood there for a few seconds, and he looked at me and he said, why do you play that shit? And I didn't have a good answer for him. I said, well, it's a hit, we got to play it. And he stood there for a few more seconds and said, okay, turned around and walked out. But that was my moment with Barry. But the thing about the whole issue is that I have been to websites and I have subscribed to the Almond Brothers fan page on Facebook, and I've posted questions about it. Nobody knows about this concert, and it seems to me that it has maybe a historical significance, because if it was the first time that the Almond Brothers Band, officially constituted Almond Brothers Band, played a live concert, It was a free concert, and it was outside the Big Ape Studios in Jacksonville. If you were there, if you were there or heard about it or heard anybody talk about it, please let me know, because I seem to be the only one who remembers this, and that's just kind of odd. But I thought I'd mention that. I hope some of you were there, because I need to be sure I'm not crazy. I want to talk about remotes for a second. A remote broadcast is when a client, an advertising client, hires the radio station to come and broadcast live from the store or the car dealership or wherever. Usually those are assigned sort of at random. Sometimes a client will ask for a specific disc jockey, but usually they're just kind of divided up. These remotes generally lasted 4 hours, and we got paid $25 to do 4 hours, which was a lot of money in that time, at least to a poor disc jockey. And we had to provide our own transportation, of course. But basically, we'd just go to the station and pick up an amplifier, microphone, headphones, speakers, and those kinds of things. We'd go to the client before the remote started, and we'd set all this stuff up. They always had a special telephone line installed so that we could just hook our equipment to the telephone line and have a direct contact back to the radio station. When the remote started, we generally did a break after every record, between records. We did a remote really seriously. We promoted. I've been where remotes have been done recently, and basically what they do is you see a couple of guys. There's always two for some reason, I don't know, sitting at a fold-up table out front, and if they do a break at all, it tends to be about 30 seconds. There was an 18-minute limit to commercials, even back at the time when I was in radio. But we didn't consider the remote part of the 18 minutes. We just talked. We sold. We had to. I generally enjoyed remotes. We had some great remotes from auto dealerships, and I'll mention one of those in a few minutes. And also, just plain clothing stores and surf shops. We did a couple of surf remotes that I had a really great time at. But that's basically what a remote is. One remote I want to talk about, excuse me, is back in 1969 or 70. Audi decided they were going to enter the North American market. Brumos Porsche in Jacksonville was one of the major Porsche dealerships in the whole country. It was owned by Peter Gregg and his family. Peter was the greatest race drivers in the world. The reason that I did the remote was because he specifically asked for me, and the reason he specifically asked for me was I've always been interested in sports cars. My first car was this. A little red MGTD. It was a 1952. I got it in 1958. It was pretty much a piece of junk, but it was the perfect damn car when you're 17 years old and in high school. As a matter of fact, Belinda's dad owned one, and that was the way that I managed to meet her when I stopped by to talk to his dad while he was washing his car one day. I've driven a lot of really nice cars in my life, but that MG, even though it was pretty much a piece of junk, was a fabulous car, and I really enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed driving, and I still drive a sports car. This one now, a little Miata. It's a wonderful car, one of the best cars I've ever had. But that little MG got me interested in sports cars. Belinda and I spent a lot of weekends up at the Virginia International Raceway back in the day. We enjoyed that very much. We eat cold chicken and drink warm beer. And that was a part of our courtship ritual, and it lasted well into after we got married. But when I was on the air, often I would, just as something to talk about, to keep people updated, I would do, when the teletype said somebody was leading a race or something like that, I would normally mention it. But I also mentioned Formula One races and sports car races. Most people were interested in NASCAR and stock car at the time. But I did mention the sport car races and didn't make a big deal out of it. But evidently Peter Gregg heard me, and he requested that I do the show, the remote. So I got there about a half hour ahead of time, got the equipment set up. Peter Gregg came out, introduced himself, real nice guy. We stood and looked at the Oldies, and he told me some of the technological features that made him decide that Porsche, Brumo's Porsche, would be the dealership for them. And we talked for a few minutes, and it was about quarter till remote time. And he said, "Come with me." And he took me back into the garage area, and he showed me a car that he had wrecked. I think it was a Porsche Spider. As I recall, he said it was the same car the same kind of car that James Dean had died in. Just crushed the car. He said the only thing that saved him was the front end folded up and pushed the dash against the roll cage bar over his head and turned off the fuel pump. So that was interesting. Then he took me outside and he said, "Have you ever ridden in a Porsche?" And I said, "No, I always kind of wanted to. Maybe sometime I'll have time." And he said, "No, come on, let's go." He had his own personal modified Porsche. I think it was a 911 Turbo, but I'm not sure. But I said, "I really don't have time." He said, "Don't worry about it. We'll be back." So I jumped in the thing and fastened the seatbelt, and he started it up, and it was so loud. It was just like, and he took off out of the parking lot, shot down onto I-95. I remember him yelling at one point, "Look, 115 and I'm only in second gear," or something like that. Then he shot up one of the exits, did some hard braking at the stop sign at the top of the thing, shot across, came back down to the cloverleaf on the other side, and had me back at the dealership about 5 minutes before the remote started. So that was my touch with Peter Gregg. He was quite a driver. He went on to win the Daytona, 24 Hours at Daytona 4 times. And I think he won the IMSA sports class 4 years in a row. He's quite a guy. And I enjoyed the remote. We had a good remote. I think he sold a couple of cars, and we had a lot of people around. It was fun. So that was the remote. I wanted to mention to you also that if you're interested in my experiences in radio, the Jacksonville Broadcasters Association has a series they call Oral History. I did an interview for them, I did an interview for them back 2016, and I watch it occasionally, and I'm still happy with it. It was a good interview. It was well done. It was well edited, so everything that I said there stands. I think it's about 25 minutes long, something like that. So if you're interested, take a look at that. I did that back in 2016. There are a lot of the oral history interviews on the Jacksonville Broadcasters Association website, including Butch Piker and some of those guys who worked at WPDQ, and it's fun if you like radio. Typical day for me. During the week, I went on the air at 3:00, so I would go into work till 7. So I'd go in around noon and find out if anything special was going on. There usually wasn't anything particular that I had to deal with. So basically what I usually did was just go to the incoming production bin, pick up a handful of stuff, and take it into the production room so that I could write and record commercials. We wrote and recorded thousands and thousands of commercials. And basically, we just had to get the information that the salespeople who sold the commercials to clients. The salespeople would write notes, tell us basically what the client wanted, sale prices, what they wanted to feature, how long commercials were supposed to be, how many of them were going to play. And we'd take all those factors and we would write the commercials and we would record them and we'd put them on cassettes and put them in the control room to go into rotation when it was time for them to do that. Our production studios were very, very nice, but we didn't have, the modern digital stuff now. It was all audio tape. We had the Brennan family provided us with these wonderful, big, massive Ampex console, remote start and stop and control tape recorders. We had 2 really professional, heavy turntables. We had a mixing board and everything. We had access to telephones. We had to call the client and play the commercial for them. Sometimes we had a question for the client if we were putting together their commercials. We tried to do a good job with them because we played a lot of commercials, and they became part of the programming. So we tried to do them as well as we possibly could. And we usually did a pretty good job. Christmases were hell because there were just so many commercials, and they keep changing, Christmas is 2 weeks away. Christmas is a week away. Tomorrow's Christmas, the Christmas sale continues and all that. And then after Christmas, everything just stops for a couple of months. So Christmas was always kind of dreaded for me. But that was a typical day. If we were really lucky, a record promoter would come in with a handful of new 45s, and we would get to take those back in the production room and just sit and listen. There could be a new Four Tops or Temptations or Aretha or Rolling Stones or Beatles. Of course, we generally knew when the Beatles records were coming. Van Morrison, it could be anything. And it was just great fun to sit and listen to those and then take them out and talk about the ones we really enjoyed to Jim Shira, who was the program director, and Ike Lee, who was involved in everything. So we got to have some say in the music. That was pretty much a typical day. I was on the air till 7, and then I went home. Wanted to talk about oldies for a second. A lot of radio stations now, the disc jockeys don't pick the music as a general rule. The music is picked by a program director who could live all the way across the country or anywhere. And there's a strict format for what you can play and when you can play it, and that includes all the records. When I was at the Big Abe, management is required to exercise control over what music is played to prevent payola, things like that. By the way, I hear a lot about payola and stuff, but in the whole time I was in radio, I was never once, not one time, did anybody ever offer me anything to play music. There was no semblance of it. Nobody offered anybody I knew anything. So it was something that happened in mostly big cities, and it just kind of affected everything. But that meant that we had rotation of the new records that we sort of had to play. We had some flexibility within that rotation to keep from playing too many of one type of sound in a row and things like that. But the thing that we got to do ourselves was pick oldies, and the Big Eight played a lot of oldies. When I came to work there, Jim Shiver said, we're going to play a lot of oldies, and that was okay with me, because when you can pick oldies, and I had a world-class collection of old rock and roll 45s and albums in a rack behind me. They just gave me a wonderful array of music to pick from. And so I could go get oldies and I could pick up the tempo. I could get something that was really good going into news and something that was really good coming out, and that kind of helped hold your audience together through the newscast. You could vary the tempo. You could play, if you had too many bands, you could play individual artists. You could play women. You could play an instrumental. It gave me a lot of flexibility to sort of shape the program, and I enjoyed that very much. I love playing oldies, and we had some really good ones. Okay, I'm just about going to wind this up. I wanted to mention to you that in some of the previous posts here, I showed you a Beatles plaque that had been signed by good old Frida, I think. The transistor radio that's still in the box, surveys, name tags, things like that, the memorabilia that I had collected from the Big Ape. I have sent all that down to the Jacksonville Historical Museum and just gave it to them. I wanted it to be somewhere so when I go down, somebody will have it who can maybe appreciate it and use it over the years. Didn't want it just to get gone. The things that I didn't donate were the autographed Jimi Hendrix posters. One of those is going to my grandson. I give the other one to the Jacksonville Historical Museum. It is autographed to WAPE, so I think that would be an appropriate place for it. They're planning a music museum downtown, which would be perfect because it's part of it. Jacksonville had a wonderful, wonderful music culture. Some great bands came out of Jacksonville in North Florida and South Georgia, and they were going to put a museum down there that will celebrate that. Of course, by the time they get that built, I'll probably be history. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little talk. Maybe we'll do another one. I'll come up with some stuff to discuss with you, give you an idea of what it was like back in the day. So until then, if you have some audio of any of the Big Ape disc jockeys, I would love to have it. Just get in touch with me by email and we'll work it out. So until I hear from you or you hear from me, I hope you have a wonderful life.